What's up, guys? So in this video, I'm just going to connect the dots for all the videos about the secrets of the secrets and show you how they all connect. I know it was a lot of information to take in. Some of it might not make a lot of sense. If it doesn't, I would suggest doing a little more research on your own. If you don't believe anything that I said in those videos, please research them and find out for your own. Now, I spoke a lot about the Scottish Rites Freemasonry previously in a lot of videos. It might not have made sense as to why I was pointing this particular branch of Freemasonry out, but now I'm going to show you why. In Freemasonry, they have a degree structure. So when you start off, you're an apprentice, then by the third degree, you're a master mason, and then you have different degrees from the fourth degree all the way through the 33rd degree. Each one of those has a title, and each one of those has to do with something a little different. Now, I'm going to go through some of these with you and see if we have not talked about these in some shape, way, or form previously. So when you get to the fourth degree, they call that secret master, and they talk about Solomon's temple. We saw in the Cleveland picture that there is something that resembles Solomon's temple, and we actually talked about the destruction of the first temple and the building of the second temple in the secret coded dates. Adenorism, I'm not going to talk about this one, but Enoch, there's something interesting here as well. And you could read up on Enoch if you want, but I thought this was kind of interesting. We talked about theosophy earlier. According to the theosophist Helena Blavatsky, the Jewish Enoch, or Greek demigod Hermes, was the first grand master and founder of Freemasonry. So kind of interesting to note that. Later in the 15th degree, they talk about the ruins of Solomon's temple and the throne room of Cyrus the Great. And Cyrus the Great was the one who freed the Jews from the Babylonian captivity in which they destroyed the temple. We talked real briefly about Darius, who supported the rebuilding of the temple, and that was the Second Temple. Execution of John the Baptist. We talked a lot about certain names relating to John the Baptist, and also Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist in 27 AD, and then later he was beheaded not long after. The book of Revelations I didn't talk about too much, but if you want to read about it, please feel free. In the 19th degree, you have a man named Albert Pike, who is supposedly the person who helped found the Scottish Rites Freemasonry. He created a ritual following a general plot of the hero's journey. But there's a couple of things that are interesting about the hero's journey. And if we go to popular culture and literature, they talk about certain works of popular fiction that have identified with the hero's journey, and I'm sure we might have seen some of these. Ernest Hemingway was mentioned previously. Mark Twain, we saw Huck Finn, and Twain was also mentioned in the San Francisco verses. J.R.R. Tolkien, there was a mention of Mordor in one of the clues, and also Hobbit and Orc are two terms coined by J.R.R. Tolkien. In the Roanoke puzzle, they talked about Baum real briefly. The name Baum was mentioned. He wrote The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. So it's interesting to note that those kind of books are used and talked about in this book and made references about the hero's journey that happened. Also, another book that comes up at the bottom, Pilgrim's Progress, talked about that several times. In the 20th degree, they talk about geometry and virtues. We talked a lot about Greek mathematicians, some who aren't even listed here, but there are a lot of Greek mathematicians that had to do a lot with geometry. Hammurabi, this was a famous ruler in Babylon in ancient times. Socrates, we didn't talk too much about him, but you can read about him if you like. Confucius, we talked about his time frame was that in the 6th century BC, so he comes up again. I won't talk too much about the imperial free city of Dortmund, but Prussian knights, these are the same as the Teutonic Knights, basically the Teutonic Order. We talked a little bit about that. Also in the book, the word Teutonic comes up several times. If you want to go look at that, go for it. The Chief of the Tabernacle, we talked a little bit about the Book of Numbers. I won't talk about this stuff too much, but knighthood, there was a lot of knights. The Crusades, there's a lot of things in the Crusades, but the Scottish Knight of St. Andrew, Robert the Bruce, we talked about Robert the Bruce, the Battle of Bannockburn, and the things that he did before then. We also talked about Philip the Fair, Pope Clement V, Jacques de Molay. All of these people were mentioned between the years 1311 and 1313. 7 liberal arts. A lot of the people mentioned in this book had a lot to do with the liberal arts, whether they were sciences, social sciences, arts, humanity, and higher education. All of these were represented in one form or another in the book. Kabbalah, we talked about Kabbalah in the Montreal picture. We didn't talk so much about the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but if you'd like to read up on it, go for it. The 32nd degree is the Master of Royal Secrets. And esotericism, we talked a lot about a lot of different kind of esoteric philosophies and religions. Pythagoreans, this is just another mathematician, and he was alive during the 6th century BC. We talked about that real briefly. Zarathustrans or Zoroastrianisms, we talked about that. That could also be found in the Cleveland picture. Magi are just a part of the Zoroastrian tradition. Also, it's interesting to note that Jesus was visited by 3 magi, the 3 wise men. They were originally called magi, but we know them as the 3 wise men or the 3 kings now. Kabbalists, this just has to piggyback on Kabbalah. And the tribe of Levi, we talked a little bit about the patriarchal age, and Levi was the son of Jacob, who we talked about briefly. And notable descendants of the Levites were Moses during the 13th century BC when he led the Israelites out of Egypt in the Exodus. And in the 22nd degree and 28th degree, these are alchemical and Rosicrucian degrees. We talked a little bit about AMORC and Rosicrucianism real briefly. So just to wrap things up, as a lot of the degree structures here encompass things that we've talked about that were hidden in a lot of John Palancar's pictures as well as the book, we found a lot of direct references and indirect references to a lot of these things. Even though some things we didn't touch on in particular, seeing about 70 to 80% of the things that we've talked about previously in the other videos in the degree structure of the Scottish Rites Freemason is not a coincidence. I believe that they are intertwined and they're basically the same thing. This book is basically about Scottish Rites Freemasonry, and even though in the northern jurisdiction they have a different degree structure, they do talk about some of the same things like Solomon's Temple, Enoch, Babylonian captivity, the Second Temple, the Old Testament, crucifixion, resurrection, Benjamin Franklin, who we've talked about a little bit, some knighthood ideals, and the tribe of Levi. So even though the degree structures of the northern and southern jurisdictions are different, it's interesting to note that a lot of the things that I touched upon in these videos have a lot to do with them. So with that, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys were able to understand how the Scottish Rites Freemason degrees corresponded with the things that we've been talking about. Hopefully I made it clear. If I didn't, please research anything that came up that you didn't understand. It'll only help you in the future. So thanks a lot for your time. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time.